can we create safe, sensual experiences? I'm Kai Bournes and from Roche.com, and I'm going to talk about that today. So how do we create safe, sensual experiences? Okay, before I talk about that specifically, I want to talk about the cultural context around sensual experiences and safety. There's been a lot of press recently with the Harvey Weinstein stuff, with men in power sexually assaulting women, and that's all everywhere around us. And this you know, that's not ancient history. That exists today, and there is a ton of work culturally that needs to be done, teaching men, particularly men in positions of power, how to have consent with women and not to abuse that power. And so people are doing that cultural work. But what I want to talk about today is our own kind of personal work, or how do I help my clients in their own personal work? Because my clients are actually, they're living in this culture, and many of them are carrying the effects, the trauma of many past abuses where their autonomy, their space, their bodies were not respected. And so that becomes a real barrier to intimacy, particularly in a situation where my client might be in an intimate experience with someone who they do feel safe with, or who they want to have a sensual experience with, but because all this old trauma is still at play, they aren't actually able to connect with this person they want to connect with. And a lot of that inability to connect, which is related to not feeling safe, being anxious, being afraid, a lot of it is unconscious. Like it's happening, but below the level of awareness, or it's just like this feeling of kind of unease, unsettledness that oftentimes my client will use alcohol to overcome, or will just kind of override it in some way, going into a place that's a little bit dissociated or disembodied, in that desire to connect. So what I'm doing in sessions with my clients is creating these situations which are kind of like practice, a little bit artificial, but really, really slowed down, where they get to control their environment, and in being in control of their environment, they're also in this mindful place where they're tracking their sensations, emotions, and thoughts, so they can get kind of a landscape or picture of themselves when they are in these intimate experiences, and how safe do they actually feel. Okay, so maybe I'll give you an example of one of these games that we play to give you a better idea of how this all works. So it's very important for a person to have a strong sense of their no. Like, I don't want to do this, I'm not willing to do this, I won't do this, and I am going to express that to you. And so in session, we'll have a very simple game called the no game, which we practice to reinforce that no muscle. So I'll say something like, would you like a hug? And my client will say no, and feel whatever response is there. And then I'll say, oh, can I stroke your hair? And my client will say no. And then again, feel like, whoa, what's happening for them? And so we'll play this game a few times, and then we'll talk about what comes up for them. And so they're building this kind of like, ooh, what is my relationship to no? And they're building the actual practice, getting the practice to actually say no. So, and they're feeling any kind of like, ooh, is there anxiety in saying no? For most clients, there is a lot of anxiety in saying no. So, but we're helping them get over that anxiety. Because when your no is strong, then your yes becomes strong as well. Okay, so another game or practice that happens in session with my clients is they're getting a control of their personal space, like how close I am to them, and they can draw me in closer or push me away, and they can feel how their body is responding to these different spatial arrangements, right? And with very, very incremental control, like they can feel like, oh, like at 4 feet 3 inches they feel great, safe, comfortable, and at 4'1" it's like it's too close. Right? And so they're getting this sort of like really fine-tuned sense of their body's wisdom, and their body being able to tell them like, oh, this feels good, and this doesn't feel good. And so it's funny, when we play at that edge of like, okay, 4 feet 3, 4'2.5", and breathe into it, and have that sense of control. When my client has that sense of control, then it's like the relaxation expands. She starts to feel actually safer, more at ease, right? It's kind of like when you're in yoga and you're doing a stretch, right? And you just find that place where the stretch feels good, but you're not pushing it too far, and you're breathing into it, and then that gives a chance to the body to kind of expand, and you can go deeper in the stretch. And if you force it, you try to override it, what actually happens is the body gets tighter, and if you keep forcing it, you get injured. So it's the same sort of thing that can happen in an intimate sensual experience as well, like in this desire to like go farther, to have more intimacy, to be closer. You can actually be overriding what your body feels safe with, and then that causes dissociation, and then that causes actually less intimacy. So, in practicing finding the edge and fine-tuning where the edge is based on what your breath is doing, what sensations in your body are, what your thoughts are, by slowing the whole action down, getting very, very conscious about what's going on, then you can fine-tune your ability to find where you feel safe. And then when you fine-tune that and keep working at that edge, then your sense of safety expands. And your capacity for intimacy and pleasure expands along with it. So, I'm Kai Bournes from Arosha.com. That's a little bit about safety and how I work with my clients to find safety. And if you want to find out more, check out my website. And please give me a call, and I hope to connect with you soon.